Hello and welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Jenny and I'm joined from Hong Kong by my co-host and sister Heather. Say hello, dude.
Hello, everyone.
Today we are discussing the 1987 Christmas special, The Frog's Legacy. So grab a port and lemon, but better make it a small one, and let's get started.
It's now Christmas 1987, a whole year since the Royal Flush, and John Sullivan has been very busy during this year, working on the second series of Dear John, his most recent sitcom. The BBC ordered a standalone episode to keep up the tradition of airing Only Fools and Horses on Christmas Day, and so we have The Frog's Legacy. This episode aired on the BBC at 6:25pm on Friday, December 25th, 1987. Viewing figures were lower than previous years, just 14.5 million, which is still good, obviously, but lower than both To Hull and Back and A Royal Flush. I wonder how much A Royal Flush affected these viewing figures. The Frog's Legacy aired straight after the Russ Abbott Christmas show and was followed by Christmas Night with the Two Ronnies. Christmas number one this year was Always on My Mind by the Pet Shop Boys. The top grossing movie for 1987 was Crocodile Dundee. And number one at the UK box office during Christmas 1987 was Masters of the Universe. Another few notable things from Christmas 1987. Coronation Street drew a record-breaking audience this year over on ITV for Hilda Ogden's last appearance. Over 26 million viewers tuned in. And on a more depressing note, Margaret Thatcher secured her third term in June 1987 as Prime Minister of the UK. Sorry if we've got any Margaret Thatcher fans out there. Let's move on to a little trivia for this week, shall we, dude?
Yeah, okay, let's do that. So, for this special, it was decided that it would be more like a longer version of a regular series episode. They would do a mixture of location shooting and studio-bound scenes and then record in front of a live studio audience to obtain their regular laugh track. They certainly learned a lot from A Royal Flush. This episode was the last ever to be produced and directed by Ray Butt. He actually left the BBC after this episode and became the head of comedy at ITV's Central Television. Butt took the opportunity to choose his home county of Suffolk for the location shooting. But sadly, his father passed away during the shooting, so it was a very difficult time for him. Location filming was done in 4 different locations in Suffolk County between November 17th and November 30th, with the studio performance taking place on the 9th of December 1987, so not quite as close to The Wire and rushed as A Royal Flush was. This episode is actually very significant to the overall story of Only Fools and Horses. Not that it was known back in 1987, but the introduction of Freddie the Frog Robdall here would start the storyline which eventually ended the entire series and would go on to begin a whole new prequel series, Rock Chips. Obviously, there are going to be some continuity issues we could point out, but Sullivan went so deeply down this hole in the future, we will try to focus on the fact that this was made at the time to pose the question and strongly suggest that Rodney was the son of Freddie the Frog, but they don't really push it here, especially not in regards with his relationship to Del, and it is not the main plot point in this episode. So, yeah, continuity issues all over the place, but that is not going to be our main focus. John Sullivan said he was keen to alter the impression he may have given of Joan Trotter. He wanted her to be seen as more human, to get away from her just being a slapper. Those are his words, by the way. He said, Joan is very significant, the most important person that we never see in the series. She's absolutely vital to it all. She was always portrayed as a tart, but then you realise she may actually have loved Freddie Robdall. I already painted Reg as a scrounger and a wife-beater, so when she met this rather suave, charming man, she fell for him, as you would. And finally, completion of this episode apparently left the nation worried it would be the last. Even David Jason thought it could potentially be, and said in an interview for the Daily Express, which was released on Christmas Eve, "Please don't kill off Del Boy, and I hope Del Boy can live on, even if it's only every Christmas." So I've also read many comments and reviews that suggest that Ray Butt tried to convince John Sullivan that he should end with this episode. But it doesn't say that in any of the books I have for reference, so I cannot confirm if that's true. So let us know if you know anything about that.
Wow, that's crazy to think that that could have happened. The Frog's Legacy being the last episode would have been so strange. I mean, at least Who Wants to Be a Millionaire would have made a bit of sense.
I think
but not this one.
It leaves too many open questions for it to have been a really satisfying ending. It could have been the ending. I mean, that what people are saying about Ray Butt does make sense. It's quite possible that he was leaving the production, so he kind of planted the seed with John Sullivan that maybe, it won't work without me. Or I don't think he would say that, but he might be like, maybe this is a good time to end it.
Yeah, it would have been hard for him to walk away and see it continue and to see it get arguably the most successful after he left.
I mean, I wonder, because this is the one episode after Royal Flush. There isn't, let's say it had ended here. Because I think Royal Flush was just a really bad experience for everyone, like we talked about. It wasn't just that the episode wasn't really received very well by fans, which could be an understatement. But as we discussed last time, the production was very troubled.
Yes.
And the actors were very fried. And Ray Butt's leaving. So I could totally see why they were thinking, yeah, maybe we shouldn't push this any further. But obviously we're all glad that they did.
Yeah.
But they do take a pretty major turn after this episode, as we've discussed. We're going to do the series wrap after this episode, because after this one, everything changes before dates. Like, there's so many changes before dates.
Well, on that note, do you want to let our listeners know what they can expect to hear in the Series 5 overview?
Yeah, okay. So we're actually going to do our Series 5 overview after this episode, because even though this episode was aired 1 year later and isn't part of Series 5 or 6, the most significant changes took place after this episode and before Dates was released, and Dates was actually only aired 1 week before the first episode of Series 6. So this is where it makes the most sense to place it. So after this episode aired, we moved into the early part of 1988, and at that point, a lot of discussions were going on over at the BBC regarding the future of the show, and this is where Sullivan and Jason launched their campaign in earnest to extend the runtime of the episodes. They also needed a new producer and director, and they overall decided to take the show in a different direction, focusing more on family and personal issues than the wheeling and dealing being the main storyline of each episode. So, much more on that in our Series 5 overview. Shall we move on to the rankings for this week, dude?
Yep, let's do that. So, as our regular listeners will know by now, each week we reveal and compare our rankings for the episode, and prior to recording the entire podcast, we independently ranked all 64 episodes. So if you didn't already know that, then you're not yet one of our regular punters, and we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast. We release a new episode every Saturday, and occasionally we release special episodes as well in the middle of the week, but we'll let you know when those are coming.
Yeah, and there'll always be a surprise because we don't know either.
Yeah, that's true. That we don't have them on our schedule. It's usually just a spur of the moment thing. So, dude, do you want to guess what my ranking is this week?
Oh, you know what? I've got your... Okay, right. So this is a new thing that we did. We put together the spreadsheet with my rankings, Heather's rankings, and our other sister, Fran's rankings. And we're filling them in as we go with ours. We know what Fran's are. So I can actually see what spots you have free. So this will actually help me.
Okay.
Right? So I'm looking at yours. You've got loads of top spots free. All the way from 24 to 37 for you is populated. So I'm going to guess it's your number 16.
Oh, it's close.
Okay.
My ranking for this one is 13.
Oh, so close. Yeah, okay.
Unlucky for some. Okay, and I don't have the cheat that you have in front of me, but I'm guessing your ranking is not too far off mine because I know you also love this episode. Well, I'm guessing it's in the teens, I'll say that. Is yours in the teens?
It's actually, I'm looking now because I don't remember what I put, and no, it's not in my teens. It's 21.
21, okay. Not far off the teens.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I don't know why, though. I think, it could have been anywhere between 10 and 20 for me. I don't think it quite hit my top 10. It could have been anywhere between 10 and 20. I do love it. I think it's really good. Obviously, I feel like this is not necessarily an episode that you would show to a brand new viewer.
No.
It's one of those ones that does have a good story and it really interesting, but I think it might be a little bit too... It hints too much at a background that we're not sure of for it to be something a new viewer could watch. It's something a real fan would love, and this is where we get into the Rock and Chips crossover and stuff. The story's so strong it was able to carry a whole new series offshoot.
Yeah.
So it's such a great background that he started to build, and I love the fact that he decided to start building a background this far into the series that we'd never heard of before.
Yes.
But yeah, I think just for it's not pure comedy that you could throw on for anybody. I think it slipped to just out of my top 20, but I still love it. What about you?
Yeah, for me, this episode is so high because, as you mentioned, it's got great storytelling. It's a story we haven't heard before. I think there's something lovely about it because it's the only time we get this kind of mystery story almost. I know that technically it's resolved at the end, but I love the build up to it. I love the way the story pans out and everything's so clear. And of course we have in my opinion, one of the best guest stars ever in Only Fools and Horses, which is Joan Sims in this episode.
Oh yeah.
And being a huge Carry On fan that we are, I mean, it's, of course, this is wonderful. And it was so lovely seeing her, even when I was a kid, because I loved the Carry On movies, seeing Joan Sims in this. And she's just a breath of fresh air. And she's got such great chemistry with David Jason. I really wish we could have seen them together more because they were just brilliant. And yeah, for me, this one has some really strong one-liners as well that I love. It's got some really funny sequences that are memorable. I can name at least 2 or 3. And the ending of this episode for me, we're going to talk about this later anyway, but I find this ending really intriguing and mysterious. Even when I was a kid, like the whole idea that there's this gold out there, spoilers, gold out there in the sea, and it could be theirs, but they didn't get it. And it's like, there's just something so wonderfully mysterious about this episode that I don't think many other episodes have. And I think that's why this one really stuck with me. And something else that you mentioned in the beginning about this being sort of a transition, like this was the last sort of episode before things changed. I think you can feel that as well. You know, it's like this new thing is being explored, and if they were going to end it on this episode, it would like been ending the whole series on this like question mark. And I think obviously I'm really glad they didn't end the series, but it's such an interesting way to end the series if they were going to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I just think, yeah, it's a great episode for many reasons is what I'm trying to say, basically.
What they could have, like, let's say they had ended it here, they would have come back and done a prequel or follow-up at some point. But it might have ended up just focusing on wrapping this up rather than continuing the development of the characters, right?
Yes.
And they could have stopped at this point and then made Rock and Chips. Could have done that. Because that could have explained the background of this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you said we're not going to comment on this stuff from the episodes in 2000s, but I find it very hard not to. When I was watching this, I couldn't help thinking about all the stuff that happens in Sleepless in Peckham that completely obliterates the continuity of this episode.
Oh, shit. Okay, so when I said that, I meant I wasn't going to comment on the differences between this and Rock and Chips.
Oh.
You know what? I hate to say this because I don't want to be a spoiler. I have only ever seen Sleepless in Peckham once, and I don't know any of what happens, so I'm going to rely on you for this.
Oh, well, allow me to talk about that then while we do this episode breakdown.
When I say we're not going to comment on it, I don't think there's any harm in you bringing up issues that are back and forth, but you might want to save more of that for when we actually get there. How much time was between Sleepless in Peckham and Rock and Chips?
Oh, what, 2003 was Sleepless in Peckham? Was that the last one? 2001, 2002, 2003?
So Rock and Chips wasn't released till 2010. So yeah, you've got quite a long time between the writing of Sleepless in Peckham. And if you, like, I think we've discussed this before, and this is really important to note, Rock and Chips is pretty accurate in terms of story when you watch the old episodes of Only Fools and Horses series 1 and 2.
Yeah.
How well it meshes with Sleepless in Peckham, I don't know, and how well Sleepless in Peckham fits in with these older episodes like Frog's Legacy and prior is probably more sketchy. When I said we're not gonna comment on it, I didn't mean that we wouldn't say anything. I just meant that it's not gonna be our main focus is to sit here and be like, well, that doesn't fucking fit with Sleepless in Peckham. I'm gonna
nitpick a little bit because I made some notes about it. But yes, if you don't remember the episode, this is going to be quite interesting for you to listen to as well, some of the parts that don't match.
Yeah, you point them out, but I'm going to try to make sure that we focus on this as a standalone episode as well, because in its moment, in its time, it wasn't contradicting anything, and it was great.
Yeah.
It's the other episodes that contradict this one.
What about IMDb?
Yeah, so first of all, before we do IMDb, we're going to do Fran. So Fran's ranking
Can we reword that, please?
Okay. Before we reveal the IMDb ranking, we're going to reveal our sister Fran's ranking just to see how well it fits in, because remember, she's almost the same age as me. We're very close in age and we all watch these episodes together, so I think it's funny to see how hers compares to ours. And hers is 14.
Oh.
Which is only one lower than yours.
One
and
lower
then
than
IMDb is 23, which is 2 lower than mine. Okay, one last thing before we start the episode breakdown. Somebody posted images of the Radio Times Christmas edition, which has the listing for this episode in from 1987. And I cannot help but point out here that firstly, they actually misquote Dell in the little synopsis. They put, next year we'll be millionaires, which really annoyed me. And then the synopsis for the episode says that they're going to the wedding of an old flame, which is also Incorrect. Lisa was not an old flame. Okay, and that is
she was an old obsession.
That is my little nitpick here, because one thing that I really find really irritating is like lazy synopses.
Yes. Synopses. Yes,
but also next year will be millionaires. Come on.
Yeah, that's pretty bad to misquote one of the most famous catchphrases of the entire Rodney Foz and Harson.
I mean, this year for Christmas 1987, the Trotters were not on the front cover of the Radio Times, although they probably should be. Well, he should have been. But maybe they were mad about Royal Flush. I still don't know how much a Royal Flush really irritated everybody at the time.
Yeah.
Because they were on the front cover for Hull and Back.
Okay, shall we go ahead and start the episode breakdown?
So we open in the Nag's Head, a familiar and comforting setting, a busy evening actually. Del calls Mike over to him at the bar and he attempts a sales pitch. So this episode starts exactly the same as T for 3. So here he's trying to sell those computers that we've seen stacked up in the flat in several other episodes. I think Prussia with Love and A Royal Flush, maybe even some others.
How's that for a portable computer, eh? Look at it. It's got 64K, it's got UHF output, it's got a megabyte disk drive, it's got ROM, it's got RAM, it's got them little red and green lights, it's got everything.
What I want with a computer, Del.
What does he want with a computer? Everyone's got a computer these days.
Have you got one?
Have I got one?
He's got 25.
I love that little sarcastic comment there.
Yeah, Rodney's so good at doing the sarcastic digs.
Yeah, and also ruining Del's sales pitch at the end.
Yes.
Mike insists that he does not want one. So now that we're fully into Trigger's dumb, less of a criminal kind of era, Mike says,
Not on the house, Trigger, eh?
Trigger? With a computer? Do me a favour, he's still struggling with light switches.
So on that note, we cut across to Albert and Trigger sitting at a table. And this episode brings us the continuing theme of Mike's beer being bad. Trigger pointing it out again. So another parallel with T for 3. They start the same. Mm. And we get a really memorable comeback here from Trig when Mike gets mad at him. I love this line.
Here, Mike, I ordered beer.
Don't try to be funny with me, Trig. I'll tell you this much. I've had certificates for my beer.
Yeah, I've had a few days off work with it and all.
That reminds me of the cubic foot joke.
Yes.
He said he didn't know, but he tried to have a week off work with it. Del and Rodney join Albert and Trig, and we learn that Del is having a hard time selling the computers. Rodney says that's because they don't work. And this leads us into learning that Rodney took his computer course at the Adult Education Centre and failed. But this sets us up nicely for future episodes, namely Yuppie Love, when he goes back to try again. And it shows us that he's actually trying to do something to free himself from Trotters independent traders. He definitely doesn't seem too content here working again for Del.
Do you know what he's had me doing today? Look, this is one of them infrared massages, right? Cures rheumatics and all that sort of game. He's had me hobbling through the market like I've got bad lumbago, right? And then Healing Hands Trotter spots me and cures me in front of all the punters. He used to be a cowboy, now he's a medicine man.
Which obviously we know that sets us up for later with Albert. So anyway, Del gets up to leave and he says he's off to the local chop suey house that's going bust because they're auctioning off all their gear. We know that comes back later, but unfortunately for him, he runs into Mr. Jahan and he's leaving.
Mr. Trotter.
Oh, Mr. Jahan, what a pleasant surprise. What brings you in?
That computer sold me last month. Still not working.
And that is Mike bursting into laughter in the background, which I think is so hilarious. It's like... Yes. After Mike is just like, no, I don't want the computer. And then that guy, still not working.
Yeah, I agree.
So perfect. So Mr. Jahan, he was played wonderfully here by Adam Hussein, who now goes by Naif Rashid, I think if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's also a voice actor, and he has provided voices for many video games. He shot all of his location footage first and had no idea that when he returned to London that he had to film in front of a live studio audience for the studio scenes. So he said he was actually really nervous filming in front of a live studio audience. Yeah.
Oh my God, I would be.
I mean, imagine if you didn't know. You were like, oh yeah, I'm going to go and shoot a sitcom.
Well, also for a show that was already as big as Only Fools and Horses by this point. I mean, that's terrifying to be in front of a studio audience that are sort of depending on you to be hilarious as David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst. I mean, yeah, that's very intimidating.
Yeah, but he's great. So Del ushers Mr. Jahan to another table to discuss the faulty computer. He asks for something non-alcoholic, and Del asks for a pint of Mike's best bitter, so this joke carries on. Apparently, I've noticed that some people report this as a mistake or a goof. online. They're like, oh, Del's so dumb. He asks for something non-alcoholic, and then Del asks Mike for a beer. And I'm like, yeah,
No,
but
that's the joke.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be water.
This is
Yeah,
what
I
people
get it.
like. This is because people don't know the show well enough to be commenting, and I think a lot
But
of
do you know what's even funnier? Mr. Jahan drinks it.
he does,
Even
yeah.
though he asked for something non-alcoholic.
But it doesn't matter because there's no alcohol. He's had certificates for his beer. I have to say, like, at this point, again, if you don't know the humor of a show, then don't, like, assume that you've picked up on a mistake or something, right? Because, like, a lot of people do that, and it's very
Well,
annoying.
there are a lot of jokes in Only Fools and Horses that we don't understand. We've commented on it multiple times and we had to look it up. So there is a chance that you kind of misread a joke and you think it's a mistake because you didn't get it was a joke. But I think the fact that they all laugh after he says it kind of gives it away as a joke.
It's obviously a joke. Mr. Jahan is not happy with his computer. He says,
So far, your computer has managed to destroy my accounts, my stock records, and set fire to my curtains.
You must be pressing the wrong button, Mr. Jahan.
That's a really funny line. I wrote that line down as well.
yeah, that plus the fact that he says it again in Jolly Boy's outing when the smoke is coming. He must be pressing the wrong button or something. He's pressing the smoking button or the set fire to
that
my
must be
curtains.
that must be one of Del's classic sort of lines to get out of things. He must be pressing the wrong button.
Yeah. What button sets fire to your curtains? I want to know. So somehow Del manages to talk Mr. Jahan into giving it another week's trial. I don't know how he does this, but I could only
No,
wish I
he's
had
very-
his
Well, he's
sales
so
tactic.
persistent, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's very good.
So then they get onto the subject of Mr. Jahan struggling to get a good employee. He doesn't state at this point what the job is, and that's deliberate. But he says it's easy, pays well, and we see Del like look over at Rodney.
Yes, I know.
So he has a plan for him. So Del starts to do another sales spiel here, and he keeps saying, you need the right candidate and everything. But Mr. Jahan is very clear he doesn't need any of these silly kind of qualifications.
Can he walk?
Walk? Yeah, he dashes about all over the place.
So Del is very good at selling Rodney. Like, we see him selling Rodney a lot of times over the years. So while Del is over there sealing the deal, Mike comes back to the other table to tell Rodney.
Del boy's got something going over there.
Oh, I mean, somebody's going to suffer.
How does Rodney not know at this point?
Yeah, I put that. I was like, every time Del is away from Rodney doing something, it tends to mean Rodney's got to do something he doesn't want to do. I mean, that happens in so many episodes.
I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
it's
Del is
Rodney.
plotting something for Rodney. So, yeah.
Always plotting for Rodney. Yeah, I agree with you. Rodney's so naive, even after all this time.
So we just duck away from this story for 1 second, and Trig is going to set us up for the next scene here. He invites Mike, Rodney, and Albert, all of them, down to Hampshire for Lisa and Andy's wedding. So I always thought this is a little bit weird. Why are they invited? Like, I guess weddings just weren't as expensive as they are now.
Well, actually, I know it's going ahead a little bit into the next scene. To be honest, Del and Rodney make sense a little bit more because they knew her mom. Del dated Lisa's mom, right? And then like Trigger's best friend. Del is Trigger's best friend. Boise and Marlene are the ones that I don't understand why they are invited.
And no, Mike, because she doesn't even know. I mean, they have to reintroduce.
Yeah, Mike as well. Yeah. These people, I don't understand why they'd be invited at all.
Del and
at all.
Rodney, yes, I get. And Albert, because maybe he's going to go with them or whatever. Yeah, what I'm saying
Yeah.
is I don't understand why Mike. And yeah, you're right, Boise and Marlene as well. Like, they don't know any of the family.
No, and they bought them a really nice present, which we'll talk about as well.
Well,
So,
that-
I know that's probably just because they want to make a good impression on everybody that
Yeah.
they're like upper class.
I
but
think
still.
the present is more for them than it is for the
Yes.
couple. But yeah. So yeah, I was going to say here that they do a joke here where they suggest that Lisa thought she was pregnant, but she wasn't. But yeah, I think we pointed this out in Tea for Three. She thought she was pregnant in Tea for Three. She's drinking wine at the tea.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think they kind of forgot that. Not that it's important, but yeah.
No, yeah.
She also forgot she was engaged and forgot to mention her fiance. So yes, okay.
Yeah, true.
We'll skate over that. So Del suddenly appears back at the table to announce to Rodney that he's gotten him a job. Rodney immediately says he doesn't want it, but Del does his usual embellishments to make it sound way better than it really is.
He would have been a trainee computer programmer, eventually. And it was mentioned that the successful candidate would, with endeavour, attain executive status.
Oh, hold on. I thought it was going to be, umping boxes around and stuff like that. I didn't know I was going to be a trainee executive.
So Del is using his tactics here to make Rodney apologise and kind of have to be sort of nice again to inquire about the job. So that's this is quite a famous Delism here. He says,
He mentioned your CV. How bad's that, eh? Nice little citron.
He might have been referring to my curriculum vitae.
Well, that's no problem. There's no heavy lifting involved.
So this is a really funny little gag here because neither Del or Albert know what a CV is, but they both think that it means something else. Del thinks it means a car, and Albert thinks it means a back injury.
Yes.
Which I think is really funny.
Yeah.
That's a really well-written little gag there. So it sort of shows all sides of all characters.
Yeah, I agree.
And Rodney's always just sort of sitting there thinking, how do I explain this to these two? So Del starts to thread the truth in a little bit here. He tells Rodney that he'll be delivering. So Rodney's actually enthusiastic, and he gradually sort of loses his inhibitions here, and Del continues. He learns that he has to go down the alley between the Undertakers and the Light of Nepal restaurant and see Mr. Jahan. So here's a line that I know that is cut out on BritBox.
Hey, good Lord, is that the time? I've got to get down to Jinkies. I'll see you later.
Swift exit from Del, leaving Rodney asking why a trainee computer programmer would need a uniform. And the scene ends on an Albert classic laugh.
No. You're laughing at, Unc. Oh, you see what this means? You've just been promoted to the geezer in the market with the bad back.
And then Rodney has his sarcastic laugh as well at the end. Which
Yeah,
is
it says here in the script, Albert's laugh is one of those slow burn laughs. So I wonder if this is where John Sullivan started saying, right, do that laugh, do that laugh. I feel like he's probably...
that laugh you did in The Miracle of Peckham.
I think he already had it established by this point, so...
Yeah, he definitely did.
I
I
think
said the first time he ever did it was watching the girls go by.
Yeah, yeah.
He does it at the end of Tea for Three. He does it in The Miracle of Peckham. Yeah, he's already done it quite a few times by this point.
Which episode is it where Adele's like, blimey, that laugh of yours, it sounds like somebody trying to jumpstart a larder?
I'm pretty sure it's series 7.
Yeah, it's
but it
definitely,
might be later.
it could be later.
It might be one of the later episodes.
It might be one of the Christmas specials.
Because I feel like Del's quite old when he says that.
It could be Fatal Extraction or later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is the end of that scene. So, what notes do you have, dude?
I just had a couple of notes about Rodney has done a computer course. Was that the art class? I put question mark because the last time we heard about Rodney doing an evening school thing was the art class where he was making the movie in Video Nasty. So that didn't work out, and then he went to do a computer course instead. So it's just a bit vague about when this happened.
The video course was only ever mentioned in that one episode, I
Yeah,
guess. So,
because it was needed for the story. Yeah, that makes sense.
It kind of fits that somebody of his age would flit around with their education.
Yeah, that's true. I thought it was interesting that we get an implication here that Mike is dodgy because he says that he spends most of his life trying to hide his business deals, meaning that he's a criminal too, which is interesting because Mike, I think out of all of them, seems to be the one who has the least involvement in anything criminal in all of the episodes, but he kind of implies there that he is doing some dodgy dealing. I mean, we know in Who's a Pretty Boy, he did the dodgy deal with Del, but that's really the only time we ever see Mike, from my recollection, doing anything dodgy. But here he mentions that he tries to hide his business deals.
Well, I think it's mostly because I don't know if it's considered that dodgy to do things without involving the tax man. That's pretty standard. And I think when he says that, he just means he's trying to get cash under the table instead of through official means, because then he doesn't have to declare it and pay tax on it. I wouldn't say it's that criminal to do. I mean, it is criminal to do that, don't get me wrong. If there's anybody listening from the
please
HMRC,
don't do it.
I don't live in the UK anymore, so, you can't catch me out.
No, but I guess what I'm saying is Mike appears to be the least sort of... He seems like the sort of person that wouldn't do that compared to the others. Like, yes, Trigger, obviously we know he's done some dodgy stuff. Boise, we obviously know is the dodgiest, probably even dodgier than Del. But Mike, he just doesn't seem to mention it. So I just thought that was interesting that he mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, there's also that in Chain Gang, when they're talking about the chains, Mike is the one that seems the most level-headed and most concerned and being like,
yeah,
well, the reason they're so cheap is because he bought them when the price of gold was down. Like, he seems like an adult in the room, like he's not like being,
agreed.
like a scam artist. So you're right. But I think when he says that, he just means because he's it's cash.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
What's the episode? Like, there's something where Mike says, where they ask, did you get his name? And he's like, no. And then he's like, in other words, you paid cash. And Mike's
it's Class of 62. Yeah. He's talking about Slater.
Yeah. So I think Mike isn't dodgy, but he takes cash a lot because he wants to hide that from the tax man. That's all.
True. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. I just wanted to say I remember those infrared massages, but we'll talk about that later on because I think we had one. Something like that.
We had something that was like similar, but it was way bigger. It plugged in. Yeah.
I remember it had that big red, like, bulb looking, like, car light thing on the top, like this one. So
Yeah, I remember that too. But that, like the one that Del has, is so small. Like you wouldn't be able to massage your own back with that.
No, very true.
Unless you had like really long arms.
Well, I also said it would definitely work better with Albert needing to be healed in the market than Rodney. Like Rodney doesn't look like he would have any problems, but Albert does.
I think that too.
So I think it actually makes more sense.
That's one thing missing from this episode is a shot of Rodney being the old man in the market with a bad back, because I cannot imagine little younger Rodney hobbling along and saying he had a bad back.
No, exactly. You wouldn't buy it. I mean, Albert makes more sense, definitely. So I said I love that they finally start calling back to older episodes at this point, because I think one of the things that was missing from Only Fools and Horses in the early years was like the previous episodes never happened. Like they don't talk about them again. They don't talk about any of the events.
Yeah.
But even just Trigger mentioning T for 3, like, I remember Lisa, and like involving that in this episode and being like, oh yeah, I liked her, like that line. It's like, oh, they actually are recalling what happened, and it's like it wasn't just wiped from their memories, which a lot of other things seem to be. So, and that's a common thing from now on. They do call back to other episodes and they talk about things that happened in the past. So I think that's really good. Yeah, we've got another Delism here where he says,
You're not interested, Rodney, are you? So it's purely epidemic, isn't it, eh?
Yeah. That gets repeated, doesn't it? God knows how many times.
yeah, a few times. And I also put, surely the eventually part would have warned Rodney that the job wasn't what it seemed, because even the way Del said it was like hesitant. And once Rodney realised that he would need a uniform, why did he still take the job? Because it seems to me that would have been him like, I'm not doing it. Because surely he'd remember, if we were calling back to previous episodes, what happened with Trotter Watch.
Yeah, but that's why Del runs out. Like, because I think every time he thinks if he runs away from Rodney can't protest anymore, and then he's stuck with
but then Rodney could just not go to the job. I mean, it's only Del that's going to get in trouble. So, yeah, that's
a great point.
As well.
But yeah, that he'd always, once Del's left, though, that's it, the deal's here. That's how Del always gets out of stuff. He's like, right, bye.
Yeah, of course. I was thinking about when the alarms are about to go off.
I mean, honestly, this comes back later, but he is programming his computer.
Yeah, that's true.
Are you programming his computer? Yes, I am. He didn't lie. He just, glazed over the other duties.
He didn't tell him about all the other duties he'd have to do. Yes, exactly.
Exactly, but he didn't lie.
Well, that's all I have for that scene.
Oh, great. Okay. So we cut straight to the wedding from this scene, and I didn't remember that the wedding was this soon in the episode, but I guess it does make sense because the wedding scene, as we'll see, builds a hell of a lot of the story of this episode. Yes. So we straight away see that it's a very fancy do. It's in a very big, nice space. So I guess that's why they said Trigger could invite whoever he wanted. For locations here, we have the inside of one of the large function rooms at Helmington Hall in Suffolk, which is a 16th century manor with a moat around it. Again, very fancy. Although I don't think we see outside of this, which is a shame. They might have wanted to do a nice establishing shot of the building, but I don't think we do.
I think we see Albert looking out of the window, don't we?
He's looking out the window. I mean, an establishing shot.
So we see the outside. Oh, I see what you mean.
We
don't
get
of the exterior of the building. Yeah.
Yeah, so here I noticed in Lovely Jubbly that this was the first time, it says in Lovely Jubbly, this is the first time that Sue Holderness got to have scenes with Trigger and Mike. That's not right, because they were all together at the 20th anniversary party in Video Nasty.
Yes.
So what I think they meant here is that it's the first time she went on a location shoot with them.
Right.
So, and then Sue says here that she remembers that traveling with the cast was very different. She felt that those times away together was when they all got to know each other properly because of the hotel stays and the socializing after the shoots. I think that sounds like so much fun.
Oh.
Can you imagine? I
would have loved to have done that. That would be so amazing to get to hang out with all of those actors.
Yeah, I want to see photos of all those nights out and stuff after the shoots. That would be so cool. So both Sue and John Challis recalled that they had much more dialogue in this scene that didn't end up in the final edit. Sue said, we had a very funny scene which was regrettably cut because it was too long and there was an ongoing problem with a lot of the stuff that John wrote. He always wrote long stuff. It got cut for time, not because it wasn't funny, but because it wasn't fundamentally plot-based. Here is a great time to mention the apparently upcoming in 2026 documentary, which we just found out about this week. But of course, we're recording this quite far in advance, so this might be old news to you by the time you hear this. But apparently in 2026, because 2026 will mark the 45-year anniversary of the first series, they're going to be releasing a new documentary which will air never-before-seen archived footage. Even the cast has not seen in 45 years or less, depending on when it was filmed. They haven't really leaked much about it at this point. On the date we're filming is actually before Christmas. So they might leak more when New Year hits, because when's this episode coming out, dude? Like mid-January?
Towards the end of January, yeah, this will be airing.
So it's possible that this scene that we're talking about here with John Challis and Sue Holderness might be included. And I think from now on, as we record, we could speculate, because I think it'd be quite fun to see.
Yeah.
But when it does come out, which I'm going to guess is going to be September, because that will be when Big Brother's anniversary is, I'm sure that we'll plan lots of fun stuff where we can watch the documentary and discuss the scenes. But the only scene that I've seen teased in this documentary is the one where Raquel sings.
Yes, because she said she couldn't sing, right?
I'm going to the chapel and I'm going to get married. Like, that is from Class of 62. And in the script, the episode starts with an audition. So if you watch Class of 62, they come back from that audition, but the audition isn't in it.
I saw the clip of David Jason and Raquel sitting on the couch, and her saying the reason it was cut is because she couldn't sing, and David Jason agreed. Did you watch that clip?
Yeah, that's the same clip I saw.
Yeah.
So I that's the only scene I've seen teased. So if you're listening to this, and I'm sure tons more has been teased by now, but let's start guessing what scenes we're going to see, and that'll be really fun. I've been wondering, is that Friday the 14th scene with Michael Bilton
I hope
that we acted out, is that in there? Because we know that was filmed, and also Michael Bilton got cut from Jolly Boy's outing. Is Michael Bilton going to have his moment, or are both of his scenes going to be in this cut version?
Oh, it'll be so weird seeing scenes from the Grandad episodes that have never been sort of shown before, and actually just scenes of Albert as well, all the people that have passed away, all the actors that are no longer with us. It'll be kind of bittersweet sometimes.
This is
those scenes,
this is the thing that a few people have said, and I really want to push this right now and highlight this. Why, 45 years later, with a show that's so popular for Only Fools and Horses, has this stuff been kept secret? Because you just see David Jason and Tessa Beak-Jones's reaction, and Gwyneth Strong saying, "Oh my God, people are going to be so blown away by this." Why didn't we do this before all these people passed away? Why wasn't John Challis and Roger Lloyd-Pack given the opportunity to see all this?
Yeah.
And another thing that's really going to be quite sad about this documentary is I think Nick Lyndhurst wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I noticed he wasn't in any of the publicity stuff.
Maybe he'll change his mind, but I think a lot of this has been filmed already, and they're probably planning ahead because they want 2026 to be a big year for Only Fools and Horses, which is good for us because we've been working so hard on all this content, so hopefully some of our content will get more attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am really excited to see this. I think it couldn't have come at a better time because it's probably going to air around the end of our podcast episode breakdown section.
Yeah.
So we'll have done all the episodes by then, and we can really focus on which scenes go into which episode and how great they are. But yeah, please comment below if you've seen the trailers, what you think is coming. This is going to be really fun and really exciting.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's circle back to the scene. So we start with the vicar saying congratulations to Lisa and Andy, and we get the same two actors, Lisa and Andy, they're back, but they're barely in it. I wonder if they had extra scenes because they have 3 lines.
Yeah.
I actually felt like Lisa seems really different in this episode from Tea for Three.
She does. She seems so subdued, doesn't she, compared to what she was in
She
Tea for
seems
Three.
different personality. I actually thought first time I watched it, I had to look closely. I was like, is that the same actress, or did they just get someone who looks like her? Because it really doesn't seem like her.
No.
The vicar was played by Angus MacKay. He's had small parts in many other British classics such as Doctor Who, One Foot in the Grave, Steptoe and Son. Here he is shocked to learn that Lisa and Andy are expecting a child. Oh. Oh. I
was going to say, is it still frowned upon to get married while pregnant these days? I don't know.
It's not about getting married while pregnant. It's the fact that they had sex before they got married.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Same thing, but
Same
yeah.
thing,
But I mean, it's a realization that they've already consummated the marriage. So yeah, like you were just saying, he's summoned over here by Del Boy. It seems like Del gave him a lift, and he uses the opportunity to leave a computer in his vestry.
You left it in my vestry.
He says every line the same.
Pony.
He always just repeats what Del says in that really funny way.
It's terrible echo in here, isn't there? What episode is that from, dude?
I've forgotten.
Mr. Ram, the owner.
So I actually love the way that Del sells the computer to the vicar, because Del is obviously drunk, or at least getting there, and the vicar is so stone cold serious, and Del's just like, yeah, like you can have a discount, right? I'll see you later. And he rushes off, and he left the computer in his vestry.
I was gonna say, I actually love the way that Del points at the Reverend with the asparagus.
Oh yeah.
Like, just constantly, like, I think he does that in a lot of episodes. I'm thinking like a Royal Flush, he does it with the chicken leg, obviously, when he's in the tent. And there's so many times that Del uses food to like point at somebody. Yeah. Obviously, he does it in Friday the 13th as well, when he stole Rodney's 14th. Sorry, when he stole Rodney's food. Again, I think that was a chicken leg as well. And I just think they always put food like in Del's hand and make him sort of work with the food. Or I say they make him. I think David Jason probably did that. I think
this is a David Jason thing, because everybody knows that David Jason interacts with the set, whereas Nick Lyndhurst has always said he sat still to kind of counteract that. Like David Jason always had to, it probably helped him get into character, but it always had to move around the set, grab things, be eating, moving the teapot and everything. Yeah. If you think about it. So I'm sure that David Jason always just grabbed things. It was like, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that.
I was just thinking about like when he's talking to Raquel in Class of 62 and he goes, you just let the solicitors solicit.
Yeah.
And he's like eating like the bread and butter.
Think about how many scenes that he's making a sandwich or he's making a cup of tea. Like this is very much like that.
Uses food a lot. It's great though. It really suits his character to do that.
So he's a little drunk and he so now the scene cuts over to Albert looking out the window, as you mentioned, kind of pensively, and Rodney joins him. So I think here we get a really nice moment between Rodney and Albert.
Yeah.
I think Rodney actually seems to be indulging Albert with one of his stories and encouraging him to talk about the past, and I really love that. And it sounds like Albert was a bit of a womanizer, which I know we find out later is definitely true, because they hint that he like had 1 million sons in France or whatever.
Oh, you remember that? You remember that episode? Because it's Strangers
on the Shore, I remember. I'm just saying Sleepless in Peckham I've only ever seen once, which might seem terrible to some fans and probably understandable to many others. So I think there's a big divide between people who love or dislike the last 3 episodes. So let's not talk about that. Although we are going to talk about it.
Talk about it a little bit, but yes.
We're not going to talk about it at this very moment. So we jump around a bit here, and now we see Trigger wishing Lisa congratulations and kind of reintroduces Mike to Lisa. This is Mike. He's at your wedding. You don't know who he is. That does happen at weddings, but usually they're related somehow.
Well, Lisa's also finally managed to get the words out that she knows Andy as a fiance/husband now.
Yeah, she realizes that all of a sudden that he's her husband. She's like, this is Andy, my husband.
I'm my husband.
Yeah. Her husband. No, you can cut that out.
That is a Carry On reference, but that is a Carry On film that no one likes, of Carry On Emmanuel.
Joan Sims is in Carry On Emmanuel, right? At least
So
that's
is,
a relevant quote. So I never overthought this before, but it's such a big, expensive, fancy wedding. Why all these extra people? But I guess, I don't know, was this normal? Because for my wedding and for every wedding I've ever been to, it's like, oh my God, like every guest costs this much. Like we can't have all these unnecessary people. People that you don't even know, friends of your uncle. Like, I don't know, would you?
Maybe it was just costed differently back then. Maybe they didn't charge. I guess like if it's a buffet or something, maybe they don't charge per head. I don't know. I've never gotten married, never planning to, so I can't tell you.
I just wish Denzel was here like that too. I noticed that.
Yeah, that's true. It would have been nice to see
Would we
Denzel.
say this is the first time we hear Mike mention his failed marriage? Because I know we talk about that later in the pub.
Yes, I wrote that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said we get a little bit of backstory on Mike in this episode, the first time we ever get that.
So I put that note in here because we might get this contradicted later, but he said he was married for 4 years, if you base it off what he says here. So we'll see if that matches later, if he mentions her again. So we cut back to Albert and he's ending his war story, and Rodney is laughing as he comes over to Del, but he kind of is like, yeah, he's indulging him. And this is where Boycie and Marlene come over. And Marlene is having a great time, while Boycie merely tries to conduct himself with a little decorum. So here he notices the gifts on the table, and I just really love this line from Boycie. He says,
"Oh dear, I assume this bundle is from you."
That is our present, yes.
Good God, it looks as though the bomb squad's had a go at it. And what have you bought the unlucky couple?
A 13-piece dinner service.
We bought them a dinner service as well.
Oh, I shouldn't worry, Marlene. There'll be no comparison. We got ours from Royal Dalton. Most probably got theirs from Dalton's Weekly.
So I looked this up because I didn't know what that was. Dalton's Weekly was a British newspaper established in the 1860s that focused on property, business, and holiday advertising. So I guess it's one of those ones that just sold like mid-price stuff. Tat, basically.
Yeah. It's probably where they advertise the Queen Anne cabinet.
The Queen Anne cabinet. Yeah. So Marlene goes on to tell Adele how beautiful their dinner service is. And Boise suggests here that Del gave him the plates that he bought at the Chinese auction. And I really love the way Rodney's head snaps here and stares intently at the side of Del's face while he denies it. How dare you? And Boise's like,
Come along, Marley. Shall we circulate?
Bloody hell, Boise, we've already been around more times than a breakdancer.
so here is probably where those scenes for Boise and Marlene were cut, because they probably circulated and we got some like fun Boise and Marlene kind of scenes here, but we'll find that out later maybe if they're in the documentary. So Rodney immediately demands to know the truth from Del, and he gets it. He finds out that they did come from the bankrupt takeaway. So a lot of this is to set up how broke they are in this episode, because I think when they think they want to find the bullion.
I mean, they could have been earning plenty and they still would have wanted to find that, though, I think.
Yeah, but they really do hint here that they're struggling, don't they? Rodney says,
How's it going to make us look, eh? Boise and Marlene's service depict the changing seasons. Ours contains scenes from Tenko.
I didn't know what that was. So Tenko was a
Tenko
British television drama series that ran from 1981 to 84 and actually portrayed the experience of women from Britain, Australia and the Netherlands who were held in a Japanese internment camp after the fall of Singapore during World War II. I've heard other people mention Tenko, and I'm pretty sure some of the cast from this were in Tenko. Did I say one of the actors was in Tenko? I've already forgotten.
You might have done.
But anyway,
I don't listen to you.
This whole exchange gets cut on BritBox. So I'm guessing that's the same as gold, and that's because of the word again that's used.
What, did our dinner service come from the bankrupt Chinkies?
But I think then they think Tenko is, or the reference to Tenko is racist.
Well, I mean, it's cultural appropriation if you want to go down that road, because they're saying that Chinese and Japanese are the same. But then Del also actually says that in another episode. Chinese, Japanese, it's all the same to me.
He does.
So, yeah. I mean, I mean, again, I think it's just, overly sensitive.
I think it's all cut because he mentions the word again. That's all. So
yeah, that's more likely. Yes.
Yeah. And anyway, Del hears Rodney's concerns for once and pulls a very unsubtle switcheroo on the gift labels. And this is absolutely hilarious. Made me laugh so much as a kid. The way that he throws the carnation and then goes, and then pops up in front of the gift.
What a shame. I know. You might as well just gone. It would have been more subtle if he'd stayed standing, walked over and slightly moved his hands. To actually go on the floor made it look even more obvious.
But anyway, that's just a little side gag because it does get mentioned again in the next scene that they like Del's gift more. But just another little one over on Boise, which is quite cute. I actually ended the scene here because I cut to the party later. So do you have any notes on that scene?
Yeah, so just a couple of very little things. First of all, I love how snobby Boise is in this scene.
I love it too.
I think this is ultimate snob Boise, which is one of my favourite versions of the character. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think, isn't it interesting that the presents are exactly the same size? What a coincidence.
I know, yeah.
And I also said, isn't it lucky that the note or the gift tag on the present was not attached to either of them and could just so easily be slid out and replaced in the other one. Obviously it's all for the gag. It's as you said, it's very funny the way it's done.
It, yeah.
So I actually love the way that the presents wrapped as well.
I was just about to say
they used two different wrapping paper. They don't even have enough wrapping paper to do it in the same wrapping paper, so they use scraps.
It's true.
I mean, isn't it obvious that there's no way Boise and Marlene gave that present?
Yeah. That plus the fact that would you ever take a wedding gift to a wedding that was wrapped like that? I think not.
No.
It's just hilarious.
But then would you ever give them old plates from a bankrupt Chinese takeaway either?
Well, Del thought they were rather nice, pandas and pagodas.
No, they ain't.
So we cut to later at the party. So there's a significant time jump because everyone's dancing and we hear Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, which never gets cut.
Actually looks like a great party, I just want to say.
Yeah, this is where weddings get fun after all the official stuff and then you get to just dance. So the party's in full swing. It says here in the script that Mike is behind the bar serving. Why?
Maybe that's why he was at the wedding. He's actually working.
Yeah, but when Trigger invites him, he doesn't say, "What? Do you want to come to the wedding? You can be a barman." I don't. Yeah. It says loads of people have pointed this out in the IMDb notes. Why is Mike collecting glasses? Which is later, actually, not right now. But we see him cleaning glasses in the background when Reen arrives.
Yeah.
Did he just say, like, oh, I can't resist, I'm a barman, I have to do the dish?
Maybe he just natural, like, instincts because of his job.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make...
Were you going to say something about the song not being cut, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wham's song.
I was just going to say that I've never seen a cut where that song's not included, but maybe because it's just such a short flash of the song. I don't know.
It's playing in the background of the whole scene. It's just very subtle.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't care, but yeah.
Thank goodness that it wasn't, because that whole scene would have been cut, would have been a massive problem for this episode.
Yeah, and like we'll say later when we get to the yuppie love cutscenes, which are infamous, they recorded the club scenes with the songs playing in the background, which meant that they couldn't change the music.
Take them out.
Change the plates. I don't know why that popped into my head. They couldn't change the music, so they just had to cut it out. And as we know, in Jolly Boy's outing, big important scene and discussion that gets cut. Like, this scene could have been cut. Not that important, I guess. I don't like the fact that... And yuppie love, I mean, I'll talk about it when I get to it, but...
Yeah.
Pretty significant scene cut because of the song. So I'm really glad, that this doesn't get cut. So
yeah,
here we finally get to our one of our favorite parts of the episode. So Aunt Reen is going to come into the room, and she was
It's Joan Sims,
played by the magnificent Joan Sims, who really needs no introduction, but we'll give her one anyway. So
no.
Joan Sims was known as the First Lady of Carry On, which of course refers to her many leading female roles in the Carry On movies. She was the longest serving female member of the movie's casts, appearing in 24 of the films total, starting all the way back in 1959 with Carry On Nurse, and ending all the way in 1978 with Carry On Emmanuel. So we obviously remember her from the Carry-Ons, but aside from Only Fools and Horses, she had appeared in many other British classics. The Two Ronnies, One Foot in the Grave, Doctor Who. She also played many parts in many other mini TV shows and TV series through the same years as the Carry-On movies. Pretty much everyone in England knew her face. So anyone who knows anything about her personally will know that she was actually a really kind-spirited woman and loved by pretty much everyone that she worked with.
Yes.
As I wrote this, I actually was really inspired to buy her autobiography to read, but I still have it in my eBay watch list. I haven't bought it yet. John Sullivan said, Joan Sims was such fun, a great laugh. She didn't take anything seriously. Everything was just a laugh with her, and she made the perfect Aunt Reenie.
Yes.
It's true. Yeah, she did. So the script describes Aunt Reenie. She's about 60 and a Cockney, jovial, good-natured, good-hearted, and went through the entire Blitz without spilling a drop of gin. which I feel like should have been a line in the show. Like, it's actually just a description in the script, but it probably should have been something Albert said. So Reenie comes in and immediately lets us know that there is a class divide, despite her being part of the Trigger family.
Better make it a small one. Because I've had orders from young Lisa that I mustn't get Oliver Twist in front of his family.
It's lovely to see here that she knows Albert. I love the fact that she knows Albert. So
yeah, I said I love that as well, that they put that in, because it really, again, it opens up Albert's backstory again, because we didn't know that Albert lived on the estate, before. This is new to us. So yeah, it's really good.
Here's a face from the past.
Trotter? I don't believe it.
Hello, weedy girl. How you going?
So straight away, the sense of history, we get some dates. Reenie moved away from Peckham in 1965. Albert lets her know that Del and Rodney are there at the wedding, and she gets so excited.
Rodney's here? Oh, the little love.
That's him there.
The last time I saw you was in your brain.
Bloody hell is this?
I'm Rodney.
You're little Rodney? Oh, ain't you got big?
So Nick Lyndhurst always does this childlike behaviour when he meets an adult really well. He freezes up, he goes really quiet, nervous and polite, shakes his head without speaking, which is such a child thing to do, and I absolutely love. And he always has his mouth a little bit open, like a gormless expression. I love it.
Yeah.
So this is where you can see Mike behind him cleaning the glasses, just side note. So people always point this out. So I just wanted to highlight it. Yeah, Mike is working at the wedding, I guess. We accepted that. So maybe he just was bored and wanted to do some glasses. So Albert gives Rodney the context here that Reenie was Joan's best friend. This is something that's accurate in Rock and Chips, because Reenie is the character, the confidant who's always there that Joan talks to in Rock and Chips. So I love that they went back and they got that.
And that also means that Trigger and Del must be even before school they must have known each other because their families were already like best friends. Like, I know she's his auntie and not his mother, but I'm sure that Trigger and Del must have met when they were like babies.
Yeah.
The families would have been very interconnected.
Highly likely, yeah. I mean,
so Trigger is probably like Del's oldest friend.
Yeah, and Trigger is in Rock and Chips hanging out there and he sees Rennie and stuff, yeah. So there's family ties there.
Yeah.
So they also mention here that Joan was, that Rennie sat for baby Rodney while Joan was busy working down the town, cleaning down the town hall, and that's what she does do in Rock and Chips. So John Sullivan looked closely at this episode when he wrote Rock and Chips for this part especially. This is the setup we get in those 3 episodes. Rennie is there. She's Joni's confidant. Joni works at the town hall when she meets Freddy the Frog. Rennie tells Rodney stories about when he was a baby, but Rodney is clearly uncomfortable. And she swoops out the conversation here to have a very important line where she says,
I reckon the rumours were right. Joni was never 100% sure, but you can see the likeness, can't you?
So after that line, it says here that in the script that Rodney is puzzled and Albert is embarrassed. I always thought Rodney wasn't meant to hear that line. What did you think?
It doesn't look to me like Rodney heard it because he's leaning away and doing something else and he leans back in and the camera catches him leaning back in as though he wasn't listening to it.
I think that might have been a decision they made when they filmed it because if Rodney had heard that, he would have probably asked.
He'd have been like, what are you talking about?
Likeness?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but Albert, like looking down, Albert hears it. Albert knows about all this, so that's an important thing for the story. Albert does know about the potential rumors and stuff with Rodney, but he really doesn't think anybody should discuss it. You can tell that all the way through. He keeps on dismissing it. Rumors later, he says like 100 times.
Yeah. I have a lot of notes about this stuff with regards to Sleepless in Peckham, but maybe I'll do it in the next scene when they're talking about Albert mentioning he knew Freddy the Frog.
Yeah, definitely. So here's a really great bit that I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but we had this on VHS and we used to watch it at Nan's, and Nan laughed at this bit so much, the bit where Rennie says,
remember when I took you shopping that day in Woolworths?
No.
As I was pushing you round, you was picking up things off the counter and I didn't know. But when I got you home and took you out the pram, I found 3 bottles of scent, a packet of weights, and a Helen Shapiro record. So, next day, I took you up Selfridges.
So Albert and Rennie head off for a dance, and here we cut to a shot at the dance hall entrance, and Del is like being kind of thrown around on the dance floor, which is really funny. And then he like stumbles out of the door right into Albert and Rennie, and he says,
Albert, don't go in there. Oh, Marlene's pulling all the bloke's shirt tails out of them.
but then he sees Rennie, and this is a really great moment.
No. Rennie? It ain't Rennie Turpin.
Remember me, do ya?
Remember you? Remember you? I'm still having nightmares about you, darling.
And I really love the sense of history that we get here. So Del and Rennie go to sit down at this quiet little table, and this coming conversation is very important to the plot. So I'll try not to drag the description out for too long. But the first date reference we get here is that Rennie said she left in 1965 because it wasn't the same after Joan died. That fits in with our timeline so far. And this is one of my favourite excerpts here.
He seems a nice kid, young Rodney.
Oh, yeah. Do you know he's got a diamond where other blokes have got a heart? He's a clever kid and all. He's got GCEs, everything.
Well, he's had you behind him to guide him, Del. He wouldn't be in the position he's in today if it hadn't have been for you.
I just tried to do my best by him. Kept my promise to Mum.
She'd have been so proud of you two boys.
I notice here that the audience laugh when she said that Rodney wouldn't be in the position he is today if it hadn't been for Del. People laugh.
Yes.
It's correct. I don't think it was meant for laughs. I know that because of David Jason's reaction, he looks kind of like sort of a little bit somber when she says that. People laugh because they're thinking, oh, he wouldn't be like hobbling through the market with bad lumbago.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, yeah, as we've discussed before, Del being there for Rodney saved him. He could have had a totally different life. This is a location shoot, so no live audience. So they're watching back at the video. And it reminds me a little bit of the conversation with Marlene that Del has at Rodney's wedding. Like a little bit, like just like some history and some like Del feeling proud of Rodney, but like not showing too much like of his softer side, but you can see hints of it, which is nice. So here's the story about Rob Dole coming. So Rennie says she lost her best friend when Joan died, and if things had worked out better, Del and Rodney could have been millionaires.
I remember going to visit her in the hospital and her saying to me, if only I knew where he'd hidden it, Reen. my boys would be set for life.
In what?
Well, the gold.
Gold? What gold?
His gold.
Is he? Who's he?
Freddy the Frog.
So we learn here that Joan never told the boys about Freddy, and the first time she tries to make Del forget she mentioned it, but it's too late. Del needs to know. Rennie tells Del that Joan met Freddy in 1959, so now we have to note that Rennie kind of yells,
Freddy robbed all.
Yeah, and this is where the vicar very unsubtly kind of stops in the background and hears this. Like, he twitches his head to the side, which comes back later, so it's important.
Yeah.
Rennie tells Del all about Freddy, how he was a villain, but not a nasty one. She describes him as a gentleman thief. Del is very interested, but doesn't know what this has to do with his mom. And Rennie says,
Well, she sort of befriended him.
I mean, yeah, she would. She was a very friendly lady. I mean, she'd help anyone out.
Yes. Well, she used to help Freddy the Frog.
Can I just interject and say I think it's lovely the way that Del always thinks of his mom as this like virtuous, lovely woman. Like when he tells the story about the earring that was found on the back seat by their dad once, and he never ever implies that his mom was sleeping around or doing anything like that. He just sees her so differently to the way everybody else sees her. And it's lovely. And it's nice that sort of Rennie lets him keep that as well and doesn't say, well, she was having sex with him. She was having an affair with him. Like, she's like, yes, well, it's like the way that you talk to a kid, even though Del is like a fully grown man in like his 40s, she still speaks to him like he's a teenager protecting, you know, his mom's image. I think that's just lovely. Very wholesome.
well, yeah, and in a way, like Rennie is the closest representation we'll get to Joan, because obviously we don't see Joan until Rock and Chips, and at this point we thought we would never see her. And she is a parental figure to Del. You can see the way Del respects and talks to her and stuff. So, yeah, you're totally right. And this conversation is supposed to be painting Joan in the different light. Whether it does or not at this point, I don't know. Because when you watch Rock and Chips, you can totally see why Joan fell for Freddy and how horrible Reg is. But without that, you might just think she had an affair. That's not good. Rennie goes on to say that one day in August 1963, Freddy and a gang stole $250,000 in gold bullion, and the rest of the gang got caught. Freddy got away, but then he was tragically killed and he left everything to Joan. So Del takes a moment to process all of this, but then he clicks.
I'm a millionaire.
I know. Bloody shame no one knows where it's hidden.
I love the delivery of that line. It's so funny.
But honestly, as much as I love Joan Sims, my favourite moment in this scene is the end. Del goes over for a refill. He pops up next to Rodney and he says,
Rodney, I know you may find this hard to believe, you know, and it may even come as a bit of a shock to you. We are millionaires.
Perhaps we can take that magnet off the electricity meter now.
It's Rodney's face in this moment. It's just the absolute, lack of reaction that he does. He's just staring at Del before he says, oh, good.
Oh, good.
That is the absolute perfect face, and that ends the scene. So let's see, what notes do you have on that scene, dude?
So the part where she kisses Boise, I laugh out loud every single time I see that, even to this day. I've seen it 100 times and I still laugh out loud. It's just, and again, John Charles's reaction, who the bloody hell is this one? It's just brilliant. And I love the way that she like keeps staring at him, like when he says that as well, like sort of was like, oh, this is still Rodney. And so I have some comments here about the continuity issue. I guess the biggest thing I'm going to bring up here, so you know, because you don't remember the episode of Sleepless in Peckham, the reason that there's so many continuity issues after that episode is because the reason that Rodney finds out that he is Freddy the Frog's son is because they get a photograph of the very first Jolly Boys outing that Del is on, Freddy the Frog is on.
Right.
All of them are on together. So Del has met Freddy the Frog, and Albert has met Freddy the Frog, and they have all met Freddy the Frog because there's some quite badly photoshopped images of the cast when they were younger in that photo, and obviously they've put Nick Lyndhurst in there in full Freddy the Frog outfit. So Del knows who Freddie Robdell is. He knows his name. He went on the Jolly Boys outing with him. There's no way that he didn't have a clue who he was, because he actually hung out with him in the past. So that's the reason that all of this is a problem. The other thing that calls into question, which is a problem here as well, correct me if I'm wrong, in Strained Relations, Del and Albert are kind of meeting for the first time a little bit. Like, I know Del technically would have met Albert when he was a baby because he said he was his godfather and then George lost. But I get the impression in Strained Relations that Del and Albert actually haven't really met since Del was older.
Yeah.
And again, Albert was on the first ever Jolly Boys outing in the picture. So a lot of the continuity errors that come are mainly from that photo in Sleepers in Peckham, that it's implied that in the very first Jolly Boys outing, Freddie Robdell went and they all went together, and Del was of age by then, so he would have known.
Yeah. I've seen some of the scenes again where, like, with the photo and the whole reveal of the photo, and I have to admit, I mean, as much as I love Nick Lyndhurst playing Freddie Robdell in Rock and Chips, I think, having him be himself, be the spitting image, you're right. Like, they would have all just known. It's indisputable that he's his father.
It's indisputable. He might as well put a little moustache on Rodney, and there he is. Like,
I think, honestly, the Strained Relations stuff I'm not, like, massively concerned about, because I think long enough had passed that he might not have remembered him, because they did say it was a long-lost uncle, and you are talking about supposedly 25 years of time that he hasn't seen him, and there might have been other discussions, I guess, that we saw off camera where he's like, oh, I remember him, he was back on the Jolly Boys outing in the day. I feel like that's not to me as much of a concern of the fact that, you're right, they all act like they didn't know him. And also in this episode, another big one is that Albert says a bit, you look like him a bit, which we know
yes,
is
exactly.
body double. But again, I said I didn't want to focus too much on that. I agree.
No, that's what I mean. I'm just bringing it up because that is like a major problem. I just feel like they could have had a different way of finding out that
I agree.
Rodney was his dad, rather than using like all the cast being there.
I agree that they probably should have.
Because they wanted to put the Jolly Boys outing in. That's why they did it like that. I know why, but it just blew the continuity out of the water. That's the problem.
I think sometimes, like, people do sort of forget that. Although I know John Sullivan has made a point many times that he's bothered by things like this when he watches shows. He likes, like, proper explanations and stuff. So this one perhaps is a bit of a bit of an oversight on his part. He must have watched this episode back in order to prepare. So why have that be a thing? Like, Del is saying here, he has no idea who Freddie is, unless we could just put it down to his memory not being that good. Maybe because if you think about it, the Jolly Boys outing, there's a huge age disparity, right? Del's younger, there's mid-aged people, and then there's the older crowd. Do they all hang out together? It seems like they do in the Jolly Boys outing when they go to Margate. But maybe back in the old days, the younger crowd used to separate, and maybe he was just a face on a coach and he's forgotten him and he hasn't seen that picture in years. That is the only way that I can explain it. But do you have any other notes on that scene?
The conversation between Del and Renee is so wholesome and just a great way to introduce the whole Freddy the Frog backstory. I think it's a wonderful scene. I think the coincidence of the vicar overhearing is really good writing, actually, for later on in the... But it's a bit too much of a staged reaction. I think that's kind of why it looks a bit out of place. And again, why wouldn't he sort of go over in that moment, since he's so keen to talk about it later and be like, Freddie Robdell, I knew him. Like, sorry to butt in, I just overheard. You know, it's a bit weird, his reaction, maybe. But again, for later on, I understand why they had to do it. And I also put, wouldn't their mom have been a suspect when Freddie got away? You know, with the gold, like after because he went into hiding, right, between the robbery and then the next time when he killed himself. Wouldn't Joan have been like suspect number one, considering she was the recipient of his will? Like, sole recipient. She would have been a major suspect. They would have brought her in for questioning. They would have been like, where's Freddie, Joan? We know you know. Like, and obviously, if it came to light that she'd been getting documents from the office as well for him, she'd have been arrested. I mean, you know, that's a bit of a plot hole as well.
They didn't get that far in Rock and Chips. Maybe they would have explained that. Yeah.
But I also think, I love the fact at the end that Rodney just thinks Del is pissed.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great little end. So...
yeah, that's everything I had.
Okay, so let's leave it there for today. That's the end of part 1. Join us next week where we'll be discussing part 2 of The Frog's Legacy. Until then...
Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces.
Please like the video and subscribe. And please use the link in the description for our Buy Me a Coffee. Bonjour.